Okay, we are recording right now.
Okay.
No one's asked any questions. We have 30 people that aren't us. $32. What? I have this thing in my throat, and it's like really getting to me. Like I want to go outside. 35. Okay, Amanda, I'm turning on your webcam. I'm just kidding.
Oh, webcam. I thought you meant
like, no, I didn't do my hair. Da, 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 da. Imagine. I got a big one in my throat.
Go take care of that.
Too early. I also included sample templates. You included like 5 or 6 of them.
Sample templates. Oh, and they end up?
Yeah, and I'm doing the template slide anyway, so.
Okay. Is there a way when you do these recordings to like shorten it before you send it off to people?
I do.
Oh, okay.
We're only at 47 and there's 2 minutes. Should have
wait
invited
a
more
minute.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, should I tell Brian? Well, Brian wanted to log on.
What's that?
Brian from Presby.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, I'm going to send him a quick email.
Well, I don't know if he can if he didn't sign up.
Oh, sugar.
And a lot of people might be waiting until 1, so I would do that.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
Yep.
There's 55 in now. That's good.
Yep.
58. Oh, I like seeing that count. That's cool. Oh, and then Jasper. Yeah, good boy. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Oh, you're a good boy. I think we should like do it at a minute after, don't you think?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we got 60, 61.
62. Oh, hello.
I can see that screen, you know that? I just told everybody we're starting in 1 minute.
Okay.
We're up to 71, 72. All right. I'm going to put me on mute. Take yours off of mute.
Yeah. Take a second though, right after that. Did you?
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon and welcome. I'm Amanda Torelli. I'm the Director of Client Success here at Mongoose. Summer is a great time to work on your comm flow, and we thought this topic would be fitting as you all prep and regroup for the fall. Today's webinar is entitled Effectively Plan Your Texting Communication Flow for Next Cycle. We had an overwhelming response for both of our sessions today, and we're excited to kick things off. So just a few housekeeping items. First, we have prepared a handout for everyone. You can retrieve that in the handout section and go to webinar. You will also find slides, high-level talking points, and a section for you also to take your own notes. There will be an open question and answer session at the end of the webinar, so please ask questions throughout our time together using the question section. A bit of background for you all. We are Mongoose. Our company is 100% focused on higher education, and our team has earned 31 higher ed marketing awards, and we are exclusively focused on helping our client institutions text with their students. We've been helping higher education institutions text with students for over 7 years. So we've seen what works, what doesn't, and we can also share with you how prospective students are most likely to respond. Mongoose is a texting platform that allows you to easily and effectively text students. However, today we will not be demoing our product in this webinar. Rather, this webinar will be focused on educating you on best practices related to texting prospective students. And today's speakers are Amber Rich and Dave Marshall. Amber spent 12 years in college admissions at Champaign College in Burlington, Vermont, and is our Director of Client Relations at Mongoose. And Dave is our founder and president. This is Dave's second higher education company, the first being Liquid Matrix, which was acquired by what is now called Ellucian. So without further ado, I will pass the baton to Amber.
Thank you, Amanda. Hello, everyone. As Amanda mentioned, I worked as an Associate Director of Admissions at Champlain College for 12 years, and that's how I met Dave when he started his second company, which was focused on texting. I worked in admissions at Champlain and met Dave while I was trying to improve attendance at our information sessions using texting with graduate students. And then I made a career switch over to Mongoose, and for the past 3 years, I've been able to help many colleges and universities text with their students, and it's been a lot of fun. As Amanda mentioned, please use the GoToWebinar window for any questions you have throughout the presentation, and at the end, we will try to answer as many of them as possible. So what we're going to talk about today. Today's students are truly elusive. The majority of them will not answer the phone, they don't check email, they don't set up their voicemail, and that leaves admissions professionals in a tough situation. So first, we will discuss why texting has become such an important medium for admissions professionals. We'll discuss how, when, and why to give prospective students the ability to opt in for texting. From there, our goal is to review different options and approaches you have for texting your students. Content is extremely important. We've seen response rates vary from less than 1% to as high as 90%, largely dependent on how your text messages are structured. In my opinion, the content section of this webinar will be the most valuable information you'll take in today. We'll discuss what contact points you can use for texting, from student search to inquiries through the application phase, and most importantly, yield. You'll see how texting can be an extremely powerful way to connect with your prospective students. So it's wise to have an element of control on how and when it's used by your team. It's no longer a point of pride to say you have increased your applications. In today's world, it's all about yield. We'll address directly how you can use texting to have a significant effect on your yield and enrollment outcomes in general. All this texting should not be done in a vacuum. Your text communication should be treated just like all other mediums and be tracked, stored, and even initiated from your CRM or ERP system. Again, as Amanda said, we'll wrap up with an open Q&A session, so please get your questions in. So admissions professionals today are tasked with a rigorous travel schedule, a seemingly ever-increasing pool of applications, and the students and their parents are not making life any easier. They will not answer the phone, they often don't check email, and this can be extremely frustrating for someone whose job it is to communicate with these students. A recent Ruffalo Noel Levitt study found that the majority of students want to text with colleges, and that the majority have never been given the opportunity. So we're going to show you how you can bridge that gap.
Okay, hey everybody, this is Dave Marshall. I'm the president and founder of Mongoose. Thank you so much for joining today. There was a field when you signed up for this, please make sure you cover. And a lot of people said the legalities, is it legal? Do you have to opt in? Do you have to opt out? So I'm going to make sure that we do a thorough job of covering that. There's also a fair amount of misinformation out in the marketplace. So I hope to provide some clarity there. So if anybody on this call is old enough to remember the 80s, when we used to get those wonderful robocalls on our home phone, we don't get those now. And the reason is that in 1990, early 1990s, there was a Telephone Consumer Protection Act, which prohibited brands from using an automated technology to call our phones. And that's wonderful, so we don't have to deal with that anymore. Then mobile phones became very popular and texting became very popular, and they wanted to get ahead of the game and update that legislation to cover mobile phones and texting. So they updated it in 2010-ish. I don't remember the actual year, but they updated it to protect consumers against brands using an automated technology to text you or call you on your mobile phone, which is great because that's why we are largely not getting spam on via text message on our phones. The good news for higher ed is that nonprofits are largely exempt from that legislation. So they kind of have the green light to text consumers, or in this case, students. So the word largely is pretty gray. How are they, what is the rule? My company is in a unique spot where we get to look at all of our client institutions during the sales process, and their legal teams interpret what the TCPA means and what they have to abide by. And some schools say we don't need to get any opt-in because we're a nonprofit, and the language reads, are not directly selling a product or service in the text message. So that's how some interpret it, and the more conservative legal teams say, yes, you do need to get the opt-in, you need some sort of consent. So what we tell our clients to do, especially at the inquiry stage, is to collect the opt-in. I mean, we all know how many soft inquiries we get, and if we were starting to mass text inquiries, I think you'd have some fairly upset students that might hurt your brand more than it's going to help. So how do we get the opt-in? Well, you should collect mobile number. This is a little cropped out part of what could be an inquiry form. You don't want to collect phone number. You want to collect mobile number. And then you can have a checkbox. Please text me important updates and reminders, recommended. And it really is recommended. It's easier on the student. It's much easier on your counselors. And you should put this language everywhere. So everywhere. What do I mean by that? On your campus visit registration form, on your online app. If you're a user of the Common App, they already have it there. They're already collecting mobile, and they also collect, consent to be communicated with. So that's there. So that's the answer as far as is it legal? Can you text them? Yes. Should you just text them without any kind of plan? No. So there's different approaches to texting. We are intentionally not wanting to make this a sales pitch for our product. So rather just best practices in general. So I'm going to talk about some of the options that you have in order to text students. One is you could just buy them a mobile phone, and they could then type in the student's telephone number, send them a text message, and you now have the ability to text students. Many institutions went down that path because they didn't have any better option, really. And it's good for the counselors to be able to stay in touch via email and perhaps text when they travel. That gets a little tough when it comes time to, you have a large volume of students. You have to remember who's who. You have to use your thumbs. You can't integrate that data. Well, you could, but they have to manually go into your CRM or your ERP and add a communication point or add an interaction point, so it's not integrated. But that's certainly a possibility. Perhaps your CRM has the ability to text students. That's another possibility. I've been on the vendor side in higher education software for over 20 years now, and a lot of times when a CRM company or an ERP company want to kind of check off the box that they have a feature, they tend to kind of do the bare bones as to what you need. The example is most information systems have the ability to email out of the system, and the vast majority of institutions use a third-party email product, TargetX or Fire Engine Red or MailChimp or ExactTarget or whatever, because they do a much better job doing it. And that is kind of how texting is looking now, that while they may have it and it may help you, sometimes using a third party that specializes in it might be the better option. There is another way to do it. It's called a short code. So if you guys have an emergency alert system on your campus, and those texts are sent out via a short code. It's a shortened phone number, and that comes from like 12345, and or if you're going to text text hope to 12345 to give to the Red Cross or something like that, or you want to enter a sweepstakes or a promotion at a store or something. That's all kind of done with those short codes. There are products out there that let you use short codes to text students. Our experience has been that students tend to look at those as a little bit more informal, not professional. They won't pay as much attention to them, and I very much want you to guard against using your emergency alert system for other things, because the potential for a student to become numb to those texts is very high, and if there was an emergency, that might not be an outcome that anyone would want to experience. So that's another option there, though. And then you can have what's called long codes, or what humans call phone numbers. So it is a full phone number. So area code and the following 7 numbers. So this is an option. You could have one person in your office, maybe someone that does the marketing for enrollment marketing for your department, could kind of text on behalf of your counselors, kind of make it their job to talk about critical dates and or things like that. And then we have the final approach is where we've evolved to. We've been doing texting in admissions for 7 years now. We've used short codes, and we've gone through these things, but where we end out is that you can have a long code or a phone number for every individual counselor that you have. So each counselor has their own phone number in the area code of your institution. That will make the student feel as though they are texting directly with that person, and that person is using their mobile phone in order to text them back. You can also set this up so that if, heaven forbid, a student decides to call you, I know, but if they decide to call you, that it could be instantly forwarded to any other phone. So if it's December and everybody's in the office reviewing applications, you might want it forwarded to their office phone. But if it's travel season, you might want it forwarded to their mobile phone. So this creates an environment that is super interesting. So we've seen our clients send out a mass text, and the mass text would be sent on behalf of the individual counselors. So it would come from their counselors, it would be sent to the students from their counselor's virtual phone number. And it might say, hi, student first name. So hi, Kyle. This is staff first name. So hi, Kyle. This is Dave Marshall from Mongoose University. I was just looking at your file, and it looks like you've applied, but we don't have your transcript. Are you still interested? Please let me know. Thanks. And X amount of students, hundreds or thousands, may have just received that text, and then you get this almost inherent human obligation that they need to write back. Even if they're not interested, they're going to write back, because it's like when someone asks you a question, via text, you kind of just feel like you need to write back. And for the students that are no longer interested, that's fantastic, because then you know that you don't have to spend time with them, you don't have to assign scholarship resources to them, and you can focus on the students that are still interested. So in that example where you kind of said, hey, I was looking at your file, we're missing your transcript, are you still interested? Please let me know. Thanks. Our clients are getting from a 50 to a 90% response rate. 50 to 90%, which I've been in marketing my entire professional life, and I've never seen a dynamic where you would get that high of a response rate. But it kind of makes sense because, number one, they've opted in to receive text messages, so they want to communicate with you. Number two, you were a rock star and took the time out of your day to in theory, use your thumbs in your phone to reach out to that student. And the least that they could do is just send you a quick reply. So that varying 50 to 90% response rate often depends on your institution and how many soft applications that you have and things like that. So it's just a wonderful dynamic. And if you can find a solution that kind of matches that criteria, where everybody has their own unique phone number and the ability to text students, I think you're going to get the best results there.
Okay, thanks, Dave. So this story fits nicely with Dave's example that we just heard. So about a year ago, I was helping one of our clients and sending out messages on their behalf. It was getting down to crunch time and they needed some help. So I sent out a text message to a group of students who were missing transcripts, and we were trying to find out if they were still interested. So I constructed this message, and it stated something to the effect of, "This is Amber from Mongoose University. Thank you again for your application to our institution or to our school. At this time, we're missing your transcript. Please submit it to continue to be reviewed for admission." And we hit send. Very few students responded. You know, they may have sent in their transcripts, but the client had no idea it was related to the text that we sent. And the client was not very happy and said, you know, we can get just as good of a response with print. So we put our thinking caps on, we readjusted our stance, and we repeated nearly the identical message about a week later. But this time at the end, we included it to say, "Are you still interested?" We were very surprised at what happened by simply ending with a question. In a few slides, I'm going to share with you those results. So as Dave mentioned, we've been helping our clients text for over 7 years, and we've seen a lot of them do a really fantastic job, and some of them not do quite so fantastic of a job. And so we wanted to share with you what we have found to be best practices. Okay, so we made up the name Utah College, and we made up 2 very different ways you can construct your text messages. So if you can try for a moment to envision yourself being a prospective student or a parent of a prospective student, and imagine getting these 2 messages on your phone. The first one conveys the message, but if our job is to be communicators, which it is, and foster relationships between counselor and student, I think you'll find these 2 messages to be a bit different. So in the first example, again, while it communicates the message, it kind of leaves you with more of a cold and sterile feeling, while the second also does a great job, and it also imbues warmth. So we took the liberty of assuming for this example that Stephanie had already written to Chris, and she's even on a nickname basis with Steph. So in the second example, we have, "Hi Chris, it's Steph again from UC. I was just looking at your file. I see you did apply, but we're missing your transcript. Are you still interested? Please let me know. Thanks." Now the first message, see how this feels and sounds. Utah College, you have applied, but we have not received your transcript. RPLY, stop to end. STD, message rate, supply. Okay, so first, you don't want to start with the name of your school, If you're using a regular phone number, use your first name instead. Introduce yourself like you would with anyone that you're messaging for the first time if it's the first time you're messaging the student. You can even invite them to save your name as a contact. Second, some texting products have character limits that force institutions, kind of ties your hands, and you have to shorten your language or use abbreviations. And there's a big difference between being personal and being too informal. You're not their BFF. Okay, you're still, an institution of higher ed. Okay, the stop at the end, you don't need it. If the students want you to stop texting them, they'll let you know. Having that language at the end, it cheapens, it stands out, it kind of cheapens the content of the message, makes it feel a little bit like spam, and they start to suspect, maybe these messages aren't personal, maybe these are being automated, which is not good. It's not the feeling you want to leave with them. Lastly, there's no need to say standard rates apply. 10 years ago maybe, but in 2016, vast majority of students have unlimited texting plans. And based on our experience, we've never had a client complain or report rather that any problems with students incurring fees. So this presentation, while it's geared specifically towards communication with prospective students, it's entirely possible for a more transactional message, such as, the add drop deadline is extended, to be written in this fashion. But in admissions, student success, and advising, the more personal approach is going to make you that much more successful. Okay, so you're really developing a relationship with your students here. I have another example of one of our partner schools, one of their admissions counselors. Her territory to travel in is California, and she was out there for a visit and met this wonderful student and their family. And during the fall months, this counselor went back and forth with this student after meeting them just once. On texting, on texting communication only, back and forth. And by the time this student got to campus, there was such a warmth in this personal professional relationship that had evolved. It really is possible to use texting to build and grow those relationships. You're texting with people. They don't need to know that you might also be messaging 50 other students at the same time. The important thing is that they feel special. You took the time to text to message them, and therefore they're much, much more likely to reply. Okay, here's another example for you of what we advise you not to do. If you're going to respond with this kind of a canned response. So if you've been texting with a student, you already have this personal relationship, and then all of a sudden you send them a text and say, for example, "Hi Kylie, it's Amber from UC. Please reply yes if you're still interested, or no if you're not." You're really crippling that personal relationship. Carly's going to think you're either a very odd person, or more likely that software has been automating these communications the whole time. So instead, just plain ask her, are you still interested? And just plain human language. Okay, so remember the scenario a few slides back when I sent the message out to track down the missing documents, and we got less than a 1% response rate. And then a week later, I resent it, and I ended with a question, which was, are you still interested? In the first hour, we got a 54% response rate, which is amazing. If I hadn't been the one doing it, I wouldn't have believed it. Some of our clients, as Dave mentioned earlier, have had as high as a 90% response rate. So I've never seen anything like this in my professional career. It makes sense, though. Imagine you're a student and your counselor is kind enough to track your progress, see what you're missing. They take time out of their day to send you a very helpful text message that directly addresses your situation and asks you, are you still interested? There's this inherent human reaction or self-imposed obligation to respond, even if they're going to tell you that they're no longer interested and thank you for all of the time you took with them. And this knowledge is extremely important. So rather than driving blind, you're able to figure out who's still interested and who isn't. And not to waste your time and money on those students. Yes, even money. We've had clients who were able to reallocate aid from certain students who are no longer interested to that student who might just need, a couple of $1,000s. That makes all the difference. Talk about competitive advantage. So notice we have student search at the top. Often students can allow, they allow their students to respond to search by mailing back a card, going to a unique URL, and some even allow you to text a unique code, which is excellent. It's a great way to engage your student right off the bat. So for example, they text a unique code and you send them a response telling them there's information on the way and click here to start exploring our academic programs and financial aid offerings. This student just went from responding to search to engaged in your content. For inquiries, as Dave alluded to earlier, a smaller portion of your inquiry pool will opt in, and they're being asked to communicate with by text. So don't overwhelm them, but definitely invite them to those key events. You could use it to confirm their campus visits, and it's a wonderful post-visit follow-up opportunity. So for example, a text coming from their individual counselor. Hello, Scott. This is Amber from Mongoose. It was great meeting you and your family during your visit to campus this afternoon. Did you enjoy the rest of your visit? Something like that, eliciting, question, trying to engage them. During the inquiry phase, FAFSA and application deadline reminders are not only appreciated, but they add additional touch points for you and your students. Some of our clients measure the effectiveness of their counselors by the number of quality contacts that they actually received a response from their student. And that the increase in quality contacts has proven to be a helpful indicator come yield time. So for the applicant phase, texting can be wonderful for tracking down those missing documents. Students might not realize that they have missing pieces of their application. So sending them a reminder to say, hey, we're missing a document. Are you still interested? Or will you be sending it soon? Something like that really helps you to gauge the level of interest, and you're continuing to foster and build those relationships. Incoming picture messages, how often do students actually have access to a fax machine, but they can all quickly snap a picture of a letter of recommendation or other important document and text it to you. What a great way to expedite things during the applicant phase. During the accept phase, you can build that excitement, send them some sort of a congratulations text. If you have any video capital or video or pictures, you can share a URL to those. You can invite them to your accepted student community. And then you can, sparingly, but a little bit over the summer to kind of avoid the summer melt, you can send them a text about orientation. Maybe you need to get some health forms in for the residence halls, things like that. So you can use it to kind of stave off that summer melt and just keep your students engaged.
Okay, thank you, Amber. So this slide is about managing the message, or as we're creatively showing, singing the same tune. We have found, this might not be a surprise, but we have found that not every single counselor in the United States is a good copywriter. So by sending them, by setting them up by saying, just text students and go ahead, that might not be a good idea. Just like with email marketing, if you ask them all to write their own targeted HTML emails, the end product might not be fantastic. So we have seen some clients write a letter in Microsoft Word, and dear so-and-so, carriage return. This is in regard to, and then that at the bottom, sincerely, and then their name, and they cut and paste that into a text message and send it to a student. And the student would probably think that that counselor is kind of a lunatic, that they took the time to presumably use their thumbs to text that long message. They probably aren't going to read the whole thing, and they probably aren't going to respond to it. And it would take up the whole screen on their phone, if not more. We've seen cases where counselors have thought it wise to use all caps in a text message because they wanted to show their excitement. And to a student, they very well may think, why is this person screaming at me? So I guess in general, it's a good idea to be as personal, direct to the point, friendly, but brief. Think of it as if you're texting your colleague or something like that. That's kind of what you want to do. So how do we achieve that? Well, our product happens to have this concept of a template where your department can kind of create all of these text messages beforehand, like maybe in the summer, and then when the counselors want to use them, they can just choose them, like, you know, missing transcript or open house invite or all of those things. In the handouts, we have given you example templates. That's one of the files that's in the handouts that you can use, and that can kind of be your guide to how you might want to write more of them. Now, you don't have to use our tool. If you don't have a concept of a template in your SMS management tool, your texting platform, then you might share a spreadsheet. You might share a Word document with them in there. Any way to make it so that they can just copy and paste and tailor the message the way that you want them to is a very good idea. You're going to be much more successful having some element of control. That's not to say that they aren't free to respond back to a student. You know, they might want to send a one-off saying, hi, Kyle, this is Dave Marshall from MU, and I loved meeting with you and your family today, or something like that. So you can have them, you know, be themselves too, but templates go a long way to kind of managing that process and, frankly, making them more efficient. So this is a 4-year private in New England. We kind of had the word wrap issue there. I'm not sure why, but they had 74% of their applicants had opted in to receive text messages. They may have opted in as an inquiry. They may have opted in on the application. So you can see that whether or not somebody opts in is a very large indicator of their interest. For students that ended up with an incomplete app, so they didn't mail their transcript or their grades or something like that, they had received, or sent and received, an average of 2.56 texts. Now that might make sense, because if you are not interested and someone says, I'm missing your transcript, are you interested? And you write back, no, you're done, right? So you're not going to go back and forth a lot. But if you are interested and you're more likely to have a completed app, you're really going to enjoy that back and forth. And those folks that did have a completed app had 6.4% average text back and forth. So missing your transcript, where do I send it? Is it too late to apply for scholarship? You know, all of these wonderful back and forth kind of questions. So that's just some metrics to show you the type of people that are opting in and how much they're communicating at that point. So, however, like Amber said, getting on a hilltop and saying that we have a record number of apps is no longer a thing that you can brag about, because it's very easy to get a record number of apps. It's all about quality of apps, and it's all about yield, what you can do with them. So what have we done here? We have talked about the fact that students want to text. We had talked about how it's legal and how to properly set that up. And we had talked about the type of content that you can have and template that you can have. And we talk about how these are very interested students. It all comes down to, and that's all great, and that's all wonderful that you got them to the applicant stage, but the goal here is to make all of that actually, in the end, allow them to turn into a confirmed or an enrolled student. So let's look at those numbers. Same institution here. They had, by the way, 75% of their accepts were opted in. They didn't use that as a criteria of whether or not they should accept them, although in future years they may want to do that, because in the end, when we look at yield, accept to confirm, if we look at the audience that had opted in and that texted, 84.5% of them went from accept to confirm. That's incredible. When we look at the people that didn't opt in to text, only 23.6% of them went from accept to confirm. So this school had a very, very good yield percent in the first place. But perhaps even thinking about accepting more students that opted in just because you think that they're more serious might actually be a consideration. And it just shows about the, well, one, inherently this makes sense because if they're more interested, they're going to opt into text, right? So they're already, more likely to convert and yield for you. Two, you have so many more touch points. You're able to foster that personal relationship all the way through the admissions process. So they trust you more, they're more affiliated. You're able to make sure they don't fall through the cracks more. And that means you're going to bring in a higher percent of those students. So one of the slides that I was that we had on the agenda that we don't have here, you can go to the QA slide, was integration, and that's just kind of a, however you do choose to text, even if it's buying phones for your counselors and tell them to do it, strongly encourage them to put that in information in your CRM or your ERP. Using a product that could automatically load students from your CRM into your ERP or into your texting platform is a wonderful idea because it will save the counselors a lot of time. They can just choose the counselor's name or choose a list of students and just send them a text all at once. And then we want to push it all back. We want your information system should be the system of record for how well you're doing, and for reporting or for seeing what communication a student has received or has not. That should all be in one place. I would advise you not to kind of use a separate CRM-y product that lives next to your CRM. Then you're doing queries in some third-party product. You're doing queries in your CRM. The data points aren't going to match up. You run into duplication problems. So let your CRM or your ERP be the system of record, and if at all possible, integrate it with how you're doing texting. So, okay, we have some questions here. I was getting worried, but now we have a lot. So, first question, Amber, if you could take this one. What is the ideal number of texts per week or per month that you should send a student?
Yeah, sure. So it really depends is the correct answer. There's no set, you should send 2 per month. It's not really like that. Especially, as I mentioned, during the application phase is probably when you're going to send out the majority of text. And I think always getting back to, is this salient for this student? Is this adding value? Is it personal to them? So during the application phase, you say the student's missing a document and you send them a text message, and just like I had used in the example, we're missing a document, will you be sending it soon? And that student might, that might elicit a back and forth stream of, 5 or 6 text messages back and forth, and that's great. And then, maybe you're going to be visiting their high school soon, or actually that would be after the fact, but, inviting them to an event or something. So you want to let them know, hey, there's an event coming up I thought you might be interested in, or there's a scholarship you might want to apply for. So there isn't really a set amount. As I mentioned, though, during the summer, usually there's not a ton of activity, but it really, really depends on what's happening with that individual student. You don't want to flood them. You don't want to overwhelm them, but you just want to be personal. So I hope that helps.
Great, thank you. Next question from anyone not using iMessage is limited to 160 characters per text. How does this work when sending a text to someone's phone? Well, that used to be true. Now, virtually every major smartphone or even not smartphone allows you to have text messages that are over 160 characters, not just iMessage. Behind the scenes, they break them up into 160 characters, what are called segments, and they piece them all back together again once they get to the handset. So it's totally fine to send over 160. You kind of have to properly explain what you want to say. But once you start getting over 250, 300, you're kind of getting rude. So you might want to streamline that a little bit. Question about graduate schools and their preferences and response rates. We have clients doing this for grad schools, but I don't have any data right here. But we found that they also appreciate this, and it's usually real quick transactional things. Invite to an information session, question about a nursing certificate, things like that. With grad students, it tends to be like, this is the only way that we can talk to them is texting. No, they will do email more than undergrad, but it just makes you more efficient. How many users are granted access to your system? I'm not going to go directly into our product now, but we can follow up with you, or you can follow up with us later. So this is a question about what do we think about kind of having an opt-out box, not an opt-in. So on your application, we might have had the thing already checked, like, yes, please send me text messages, or click here if you don't want them. That very well may increase the number that you get, but I think it might not be great for your brand. That you're kind of they might think that you're trying to trick them a little bit. So I would probably take lower numbers of opt-ins and a more positive experience and more quality students to do that. Currently, we use ZipWhip. What are your thoughts on this platform? ZipWhip is a platform. They were the first people to allow you to actually text enable your existing landline. So if you can wrap your head around that, you can have your office desk phone and be able to send and receive text messages from your web browser. They're no longer the only ones able to do that now. There's a lot of companies that can, including us. Their platform is better built for like individuals rather than a whole group of users. And the integration there is tough to get that stuff back to your CRM. Any recommendations for which site we can use that will keep our personal info secret to students? Yeah, so with all of these products, unless you're buying your counselor a cell phone, you're not using the texting app that's on your phone. That is for texting your friends and family. Students should never see your actual cell phone number. They should see your virtual one or your text-enabled office one. So that's why you want to keep that private. You like downtime. You don't want to hear it go off in the middle of the night. That's you're asking for trouble. Requests for pricing. All these different options are so varied that it depends, not only with ours, but other products that how many users, how many texts, how many lengths of the years you want a contract for. It's across the board. So I really can't talk to price. So in the touchpoint segment, we had talked about how that if you're doing student search, so you're buying 500,000 names, and you want to give them an option to respond, right? So they can mail a card back. They can go to a website and type in a unique code, or a lot of even search providers that aren't us, and we're not. We're just a texting company, but allow you to have a response option by text. So you can say, you can mail this card back and go to this website and type this code in, or send one of our schools, Nazareth College, says text NAS A74B, so it's a unique code, and then we automate a text back to them saying, thank you so much for your interest in NAS. There's information on the way. Click here to start exploring our academic programs. So they can go right from that text, right from their phone, into a responsive site and start to explore your academic programs. Another question about graduate students, we addressed it. Legal concerns for for-profit institutions. For-profits are kind of handcuffed to using certain language. We have a white paper that we created for for-profit schools. We have one client that is a for-profit school, and they use it very well in a very friendly, ease of communication way. But if you want to reach out to Amanda Torelli, who's kind of like the organizer here, she can make sure that you get that. Okay, that's not really a question. Okay, thank you for the positive feedback. And last question. Well, I have one more question after this. Are emojis appropriate? Our product, in short, yes and no. I mean, if it's your first text, like, thank you for your interest in our school, thumbs up emoji, that'd be kind of too informal. But during acceptance time, the students are gonna send you, thumbs up and double high fives and smiley faces. And if you want to perhaps share in their excitement at that point, it could be appropriate, but not in a little bit more formal of a setting. Lastly, can you include links in your text message? And the answer is yes. There's no HTML, so you can't make things bold or underlined or linked. You just include a link, and when the phone receives it, whether your smartphone sees that has an HTTP, and it creates that as a link for you. So you don't have to like put HTML in there; it just sees it. Same with other phone numbers. Like if you say "call me at," it might link that to be a phone number. If you say "I'll talk to you Friday at 3 o'clock," it might link Friday at 3 o'clock to your calendar. But that's done automatically at the phone level. You don't kind of tell it to do that. That just kind of automatically happens. One last question, Ellucian Recruiter. Do you integrate with that? Yes, absolutely. We integrate with all CRMs and ERPs. So, okay, thank you guys so much. Amanda, can you take it from here?
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. So thank you all for joining us today. Please share with us feedback and or future webinar topics that you would like to see. Our webinar has been recorded and will be shared for those of you that attended today's session. So feel free to pass along what you learned to your colleagues. And should you desire a personal demo for your institution or have questions regarding your personal texting needs, feel free to reach out to us at mongoose3search.com. In addition, you will find some wonderful resources and blogs written by Dave himself, some content on best practices related to texting, so please check it out. We had a great time today. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and a great week. Take care.